Well, hello, my loves, and welcome back to another episode of Relationship Tea with Tina. It's been a minute. It has. I feel like it's just because I go through these waves of having creativity just flow through my veins and wanting to show up every single day, and then summer hits and I'm like, but the sun's out. I feel like I need to be outside. I feel like I need to be doing something and taking advantage of this beautiful weather because I live in Seattle and I only get this beautiful weather like 3 months of the year. And then I realized maybe I'm actually also burnt out. And I've talked about that feeling of burnout for a while now, but this time feels different. I literally feel like the universe has, like, for the last couple of months, forced me to just exist. And I don't do well with just having to be forced to exist. Um, I went through a move. I hadn't moved in a really long time. I lived in my last place and in my last apartment for like 3 years. And prior to that, like, I was moving every single year because living in New York, like, it's rare that you stay, at least in my personal experience. I had moved every single year. And when I realized how much crap I accumulated in those 3 years, like, this move was a lot harder than I thought it would be. But it was also a move that I had been craving for such a long time. It was like we had outgrown that previous place of ours with the two dogs, and it was just time for a new chapter. It was time to get out of the city. And I had been such a city girl for so long that it was weird to admit to myself, okay, I'm ready to move out of the city. But now, being here a little bit more up north than right in the city of Seattle, excuse me, it's like I can open my window at night and not hear people yelling and screaming outside my window. I cannot hear cars screeching and honking and being insane outside my window. And I haven't had that sense of quiet in a very long time. And I almost feel like the sense of quiet around me has forced me to be quiet within my own brain and within my own self as well. And that's new. That's new because I'm someone whose thoughts and mind never stop working. I've always been thinking about, like, my next move. What am I doing next? What am I doing work wise? And it's been silent up here, y'all. It's been crickets in this brain of mine of what to do next in my business. And I think that like really freaked me out a little bit. And then I got into this like freeze state of just not doing anything. Like, if you follow me on Instagram, you've probably noticed I've just kind of like taken a little bit of a step back from posting as many stories. But it's not because I don't want to. It's just because I've been so trying to feel what it feels like to slow down in this time and not just rush to put things out there to just post. It's I'm being very more meticulous about the things that I'm wanting to put out there, but then of course I feel guilty that I'm not putting anything out there. The other night, I was laying in bed with my husband, okay? And we had just got done having some much needed, amazing sex, I'm just gonna say. And some of my favorite things that, like, when we allow ourselves to just sit together afterwards and let the music play that we were listening to and just be in each other's company, it's like probably one of my favorite moments ever that we create with each other. It reminds me of when we first like started hanging out and dating, because he used to just like play music videos for me and introduce me to different artists and different bands. And it just kind of brings me back to that moment. And the specific playlist that was playing, y'all know that I have like a mood playlist, let's just say, okay? But like I put on a different playlist this time around, and it happened to just like put on all of these R&B songs. Okay, quick tip for physical intimacy: like, have a playlist that you put on that you don't have to worry about like a weird song coming on and then like having to like reach over and hit like next or shuffle because you're like, I cannot have sex to that song because that feels weird. That just completely changes the vibe. So make sure you have a good playlist going on back there so you can stay present and stay in the moment, because I know how hard that is because our brains are constantly thinking and going into overdrive or having anxiety or something or another. So the music really helps you kind of escape. But anyway, the playlist kept playing after, and we were just hanging out and we were vibing, and this song came on. And you guys, I haven't listened to Kanye West in so long. Like I just like skip over his songs these days because I don't know. He just like started really bugging me and going off the deep end, whatever we want to say about him, okay? But it was a specific song, and I don't know if this happens to anybody else, but certain songs will bring me back to very vivid moments in my life, very vivid chapters in my life that I experienced. And the last time I remember this happening, it was the song by Rihanna called What Now? And that song came on my playlist, and I hadn't heard that song in years, like literally years. I honestly probably forgot that it even was a song. And it came on my playlist a couple of years ago, and it literally brought me back to a moment in my life, and it literally even felt the feelings that I was feeling in that moment. And I've heard of this happening before, and it's probably happened to me countless times, but this is when like I really like felt it like jolt in my soul. And because that song, What Now by Rihanna, was playing one night as I was leaving this guy's house that I was dating. And he was not a good guy, but I was just solely dating him because I was so heartbroken and I was so confused and I was going through so much turmoil during this 2 years that I was navigating like this limbo phase, in between phase with my ex that you guys have heard me talk about, because I was just so distraught that he was like hooking up with other girls, that he was like choosing me but not choosing me. And so I was just like, F this, and I started like dating someone. I haven't really talked a lot about my single life, and I think that it's a little bit long overdue that I talk about some of my single chapters. But I dated this guy, and he had been in prison. He had been in prison. And I met him because he was the brother of one of my close friends, and she was dating his brother. And so I just like met him, and he was cute enough, whatever. But I was just kind of like in that desperation mode where I just wanted someone and he was interested in me. So I allowed myself to be interested in him. This fun fact is how I got my giant tattoo on my neck. Okay. This guy, because in my manic state of just being confused and depressed and not knowing who I was and going through this massive heartbreak, I let this guy give me a tattoo on the back of my neck. Yes, I did. I regret that moment for forever. And I hid this tattoo for a very long time. And it wasn't good. It wasn't a good tattoo. I don't know what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking. And it was just like a diamond. And when him and I ended up not working out, shortly after this, I got that tattoo covered up because I was just like feeling so suffocated that I allowed some guy to just like tattoo my neck. And now I have this giant flower cover up tattoo on my neck that I hide, that I'm not very proud of, but it's beautiful and it's there and it's a part of my story. Anyway, one night that I was at this guy's house, I was driving home. And I was driving home on the highway, and this song, What Now, comes on the radio or my playlist or whatever. And I just started belting it and crying because she's talking about just like, what now? Like, and I was not happy in this relationship, and I was so sad that my ex didn't like want me or want to commit to me. And I just remember being on the highway just feeling this mass amounts of heartbreak and pain, and it's just crazy how a song can bring you back to that moment, and then you realize where you are now compared to where you were before, right? Time is just a wild thing. It really is a wild thing how we can live so many different lives. And I started to really reflect, like, I have lived so many different lives for only being 34 years old. Like, that was crazy to me. And so as me and my husband were laying in bed the other night, the Kanye West song comes on called, what was it called? Hold on, I have to look at what it was called. I'm pretty sure it was from his album. It was like the last good album that he made. It was called Ultralight Beam. We on that ultralight beam. We on that ultralight beam. Please excuse my singing. It is not good, but it's that song. And I loved that song. And that song brought me back to when that album first came out, which was, I want to say like 2015, 2016. And as we were laying there and that song comes on and starts playing, I started getting emotional. And I didn't really know why at first. And so I allowed myself to just lay there and listen to the music and ask myself, what is coming up for me right now? And I realized that like us millennials, and maybe some Gen Z as well, but I think that mostly for millennials, we have literally been in like this fight or flight mode, at least me personally, since like 2016. Like everything has felt so different since then. It's been chaos and destruction and hatred and just violence, and the pandemic happened and our world just got totally turned upside down. And in my own personal life, like that was the year that my uncle died, and like I never have really ever felt the same since that happened, because he was such an instrumental part of my entire life. But I allowed these feelings to just kind of like come up for me, and it was making me realize I was feeling these feelings of sadness. I was feeling these feelings of, I want to say grief, like maybe even feelings of grief for how life used to be. Life used to kind of, it's never felt light. I mean, as millennials, we've experienced one tragedy after another, one major life event after another. Like it's always been relatively heavy, of course. But maybe it was around the time, like I didn't even have that much to worry about. I didn't have that much adulting to worry about. I didn't have that much stress about. Not many life things were like getting in my mind and like creating this sense of constant anxiety and constant fear. And it was almost as if like I was living life back then in such like a different mindset, and like just like, oh, I only have $3,000 in my bank account. Cool. I'm gonna take all 3,000 of that dollars and I'm gonna go travel Europe. Like I don't give a shit about saving. I'm just gonna live my life because I want to live my life. And I didn't have this like constant fear or constant anxiety about, well, I have to save, or, I really got to work really hard for my money. And it was just like this peaceful feeling. And it didn't feel like we were so divided as a country. It didn't feel like we were just living in this constant like fight or flight mode. And, I think that we don't give ourselves enough credit for going through as much stuff as we've gone through as human beings in our lifetime, especially if you're in your mid 30s or late 20s. We've gone through a lot. And I think I talked about this on a past episode, but I think that we've been all in like this hyper drive, like just keep going, just keep moving, just work harder, just climb the corporate ladder, just get through my fucking day, that we don't allow ourselves to ever just kind of like sit and like reflect or think about, like, I don't know, what it means to actually be at peace in our lives and what that actually feels like. Because the minute that I realize I start to feel some sense of peace or some sense of sanity, something happens. Something insane happens that jolts my nervous system to be like, girl, you thought that you could chill? You thought that you could be at peace? What? No. Right? So I think that I've been trying the last couple of months to find peace. And I think it was in this moment that I was laying in bed with my husband that I realized, like, it's so hard for me to just find peace. Maybe it's ever since I started my business, because it's not like I would change anything in my world and I would change not starting my business. It's the best decision that I ever made for myself. But it was also the scariest decision I ever made for myself, taking away that stability of a paycheck every couple of weeks, taking away just knowing, deeply knowing, well, the money is going to come, right? I then realized, but that's not even like secure and stable either. Look at the amount of people who are going through losing their jobs, right? So the only sense of true peace and the only sense of true stability and the only sense of true security has to lie within ourselves, has to lie within our own ability to feel any feelings that come up for us, to give it the attention that it is craving us to give it, to acknowledge, like, yeah, I've been through some hard shit and I've gotten over it. I've gotten through it and everything has always worked out for me. Everything has always been okay in the long run. And I think that that's like where I struggle a little bit, is always just kind of like assuming worst case scenario. And I've talked about this in a past podcast as well, of like being so worried and thinking like, what if it doesn't work out? And then I create that reality for myself of it not working out. But what if things don't work out? that's okay. You know how many things have not worked out in my life? You know how many things that I thought that I would never survive from that I actually did survive? Like that relationship where I let a man tattoo my neck, or being in an abusive relationship myself, or my uncle passing away way too fucking early, or me almost getting robbed and kidnapped in Costa Rica. Like that was a story for itself, let me tell you right now. Like, talk about me and my husband bonding over something with his friends. It was like me and two of his friends that went through this experience in Costa Rica together, and I will never freaking forget it. I will tell that story one day because it's crazy. Um, but every single thing that I have gone through, every hard moment, every hard chapter, every life event, we have been okay. We have come out of it on the other side. And I think that we search so much for some outside source to create our sense of stability and to create our sense of safety, that it doesn't allow us to ever actually feel sense of safety and stability, because we're leaning too heavily on the outside world to provide that for us, when the only consistent thing in this lifetime is ourselves. It's the only consistent thing that we will always have. It is the only relationship that we will always be with. And it just validates for me the importance of being able to have a really beautiful relationship with yourself, and being able to learn how to self-soothe yourselves in those moments, and being able to manage that crazy mindset that we get stuck in, and remind ourselves that everything will be okay, because it all always does work out in the end. Like, I want you all to think about in this moment, if you're listening to this, like, when was a time that you genuinely thought that things were not going to be okay, that things were not going to work out, that your life was falling apart? And it may have been falling apart in that moment, okay? But did it work out? Was everything okay? Did you survive that heartbreak? Did you survive that breakup? Did you survive that really painful loss of a loved one? And it may still sting, and we learn how to live our lives with kind of like a, I don't know, like a little bit of a hole in our heart, I guess, but you are okay, right? Everything that we probably never thought that we would overcome or survive or get past, we have. And I think that that's just solely in our own human ability to do that as an individual, and not rely so heavily on a paycheck to create that sense of security, or a job to create that sense of security, or a partner to create that sense of security. Although they do, my husband is an amazing sense of security for me, of course, right? But none of those things are 100 and a million 10% guaranteed, as much as me and my husband want to sit there and be like, I'll never leave you, I'll never leave you, right? We just have to kind of understand that we are the only constant in our life. And so it was in that moment that I actually kind of just allowed myself to be sad and to grieve my old life for a minute, because I don't think I ever gave myself the opportunity to do that, because I've been on such survival mode and hyper-focused mode ever since 2016, that this song just like triggered these feelings inside of me to allow myself to just be sad for a second. And I can't go back to 2016. I can't go back. No. But I can have a moment of peace for it. I can have a moment of, dang, it was nice not having to adult so hard back then. It was nice not worrying so much back then. And I had to ask myself, okay, well, if I want to feel like the way that I felt before, what do I have to do now to get to that place? Well, one, I have to stop worrying so much. And two, I have to trust myself a little bit more. And three, maybe I still have some beliefs that I need to break out of, that I need to let go of, that I need to change. Because if you don't remember, and I will sit here and remind you, that we create our beliefs, right? A lot of our beliefs are created from our parents, the people in our lives, social media, what we read, what we consume, TV. Like, that's how we create the things that we believe in. And so we have the ability to create our own beliefs if we don't like the things that we currently believe to be true. You know, I believe in a lot of things that the same most people do. And I believe that we all deserve to have our voices heard. I believe in gay marriage. I believe that a woman should have the right to do whatever the fuck she wants with her own body. Speaking from my own personal experience with needing to do what was right for my own body at the time. I believe that everybody is equal and should be treated equal. I believe in spreading kindness and no violence, and I believe in gun control. I believe in all of these things, right? And I've created those beliefs. Some of those beliefs have changed over time. I also believe that I am capable of anything that I want to do in this life. I believe that I can overcome any hardship that comes my way, even in the moment when I may not think that I can. I believe that money will always constantly continue to flow into my life. And that is a recent belief that I have had to create for myself and break a past belief of thinking that, what if it just stops? It's never going to just stop. Okay. It's water. It's flowing. Why do you think every term we hear around money is like water related? Money flows to me, liquidation, like every term you could possibly think of around money has to do with water. So just remember that, right? I just think that we all need to give ourselves a little bit more compassion and a little bit more grace as well, because we have all been through a lot in our lifetime, and it's not easy to be constantly consumed with negative media or social media stuff. Like sometimes I even wish I could go back to how life was before social media. Like as someone who graduated high school in 2008, the most social media that I had growing up in like my high school age was MySpace and Facebook, and I'm so grateful for that. But I think that I just more or less had like a realization, and I think that it was triggered by music, that sometimes I do miss how things used to be in my life. But does that mean that I would change where I'm at now? No. Does that mean that I still want to go ahead and honor the things that I miss about my past? Yeah, of course. Was it an easy past? No. But I would never, like, I sometimes, like, I'm grateful for that past. I'm grateful for the stories and the memories that I have. And boy, do I have some stories. Let me tell you. There's a lot that I also realized that I haven't shared here. About like some of the stuff I went through with my ex, about the like, things that I've just learned about myself. And I think that it's been due to fear. I also had that realization, fear of being judged, fear of people not liking me anymore. And I think that that's something that I was also grieving in that moment, because like before, I didn't give a shit who liked me. I didn't give a shit if they didn't agree with me. And ever since I've started my business, it's become more like apparent for me to try and fit in with what I think that people want to hear from me. And I've kind of found a lot of myself throughout this process, but I've also lost a lot of myself throughout that process, because I've been so nervous and afraid to just be my true authentic self and share parts of myself, because there is that fear that I will be judged. But you know what? What if people unfollow me? I don't give a crap. Unfollow me. You know what I mean? If you don't want to listen to me, don't listen to me, because it's more better. it's gonna bring me more safety and more security in myself to know I can get through the hard times if I consistently remain authentic to who I am and what I want to share, and what I've been through. And I think that it was in that moment that song just like triggered all of these different emotions and realizations for me to kind of acknowledge and pay attention to. And at first it kind of like made me scared and sad for a second, but I think that we sometimes need to be a little bit jolted into changing things within ourselves. And sometimes it's the result of something negative happening in our lives. Like most of my clients will sometimes come to me because something bad happened in their lives. And I appreciate that so beautifully. And I'm so happy to be there for the people when they have something horrible happen in their lives, that they reach out to me and they're like, I need support. But I also think that we need to kind of like change our perspective a little bit and maybe just give ourselves support and help to prevent some of those bad things from happening, to prevent some of those bad feelings. Now, We can't prevent bad things from happening, of course. Okay, I take that back, but we can prevent the way that it would allow us to break down or think that we can't survive it. It will give you the tools that you need to be able to have that sense of safety and that security within yourself as an individual, to know wholeheartedly in your gut that everything will be okay, that you can get through these hard chapters and these anxiety inducing world events or stuff that is just happening outside of your control. Because you've heard me say it before, the only thing that we ever have control over is what? Ourselves, right? So if you feel like you've resonated with this at all, maybe just do yourself a favor and reach out for some support instead of waiting for something negative to happen to then reach out for that support, right? Just create that sense of safety within yourself to know, like, why am I waiting for something bad to happen to give myself the tools that I'm gonna want when something bad happens? You know what I mean? But I think that that's in our own human nature. I mean, shit, it took something bad happening to kind of trigger this moment for me to even hop back on and want to record a podcast again. But you know what? Such is life, right? I'm feeling like I'm ready to start putting out episodes weekly again. And if you've stuck around this long, even with like me going on a break every couple of months, I'm so appreciative for all of you. I think that we're all human and we all go through something. Even the people that you follow and listen to all of their content is just like a constant reminder that we are all human. Like everybody you see behind that camera is human. We all experience human things. You know, which is why sometimes when I go live on TikTok, people will ask me, well, you know, what makes you an expert in what you do? And I'm like, well, aside from my education and my certifications, y'all have been through some shit. I've been through some shit and I've come out of it on the other side. And I've learned some stuff along the way. And I haven't let it break me down. And I haven't let it at my core change me of who I am as a person. I've allowed it to teach me lessons. I've allowed it to help me grow. I've allowed it to help me evolve as a human being. And I think that as like we enter more deeply into 2024, we're going to experience a few more radical shifts. Okay? A few more hard moments, a few more, oh, this is so annoying moments, a few more, wow, this is really stressing me the F out moments, right? Maybe even also into 2025. But the one thing that we have control over is ourselves, to be able to figure out how to navigate through that, to be able to create that own sense of safety for ourselves. And, you know, if you hear a song come on the radio or on your playlist and it's triggering to you, I want you to feel what it feels like to just listen to that song. Instead of, I used to immediately change songs that would trigger me, but like, is there something therapeutic and something lethargic about actually giving yourself permission to listen to that song and give it new meaning? Because where you were at before, you're in a different place now. Okay? I've learned that. I used to be really avoiding of the feelings that certain music would bring up for me, but now I think that it's empowering to actually lean into it and listen to it and not let that song hold so much power over you any longer. So you can still enjoy the music that you once enjoyed. Same thing with places and environments and different certain situations, right? But I love you all so much. And if you have questions about this episode, if you have questions for me in general, if you want to reach out to me, I am taking on 2 new clients currently right now to work with me for private coaching. But also, I noticed that Spotify has the option now for you to drop comments on the episodes. And so I will go in there and I will answer them if I'm able to. Or follow me on Instagram at The Relationship Boss, and I will respond to any DMs that y'all send me with your questions, concerns, topics you want me to cover on any future podcasts. And just make sure, you know, you're still showing up for you, and you remember that you get to create that sense of safety and stability within yourself. And if you want to grieve a past life and a past self, that's okay too, right? We just got to keep on keeping on and learning how to just feel what we need to feel in every moment that might feel a little bit hard for us. So I love you all so much. And if you're listening to this in the morning, afternoon, or night, I hope you have an amazing morning, afternoon, or night. And I encourage you to maybe send this episode to someone who may need to hear it today themselves. Love you guys.